Here's a big mistake I made when I first started doing talk shows and video podcasts. I treated every episode as if it was just a conversation. Now, conversational, that's good. You want it to be conversational. But if it's just a conversation, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to make it a business opportunity. Now, if you do this right, every guest you have on your show can become a potential client, a partner, or a referral without you even ever selling. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to make that happen. The key isn't in what you say, it's in what you ask. Great hosts don't pitch. They ask questions that expose real problems. Now, those questions build connection, that reveals a need, and that opens doors for you. And by the time the show ends and the guest is getting ready to leave, that guest is going to walk out the door thinking, wow, I want to work with that person. By the way, if you like this type of content, you might want to check out my free weekly newsletter called the Talk Show Me Tuesday, which is a 5-minute read right to your inbox. Tons of free information, no spam, no fluff, all about podcasting, video podcasting, talk shows, and all the rest. Link in the description. Now, let's build your interview framework. What do you think the main reason is that interviews fail? Well, a couple of reasons. Could be authenticity, but also, they're generic. The host just fires off standard questions and moves on. There's no tension, no depth, no reason to remember it. The best interviews, though, feel like therapy. They reveal challenges the guests didn't even plan on talking about. And when someone opens up like that, they instantly associate you with trust. And that's where business happens, in that space of trust. One of my clients does just that. His name is Charlie, and his podcast is called Churched. And his episodes are like therapy. And the conversations get so deep and so real that the guests walk away just dumbfounded and just want to work with this guy. There's something called the conversation arc that goes like this. Start, curiosity, depth, trust, transformation, connection. Most hosts stay stuck at the start and they live in that sort of small talk, but you want to travel the whole arc and go deeper. Now, as they open up, move into trust by listening, really listening. Let that silence kind of hang in the air. Let them finish that thought. That space signals safety. Then comes the transformation, when they share what they learned or how they changed. Finally, connection. When they look at you differently, as someone who understands them, that's where the future conversations and collaborations begin. The easiest way to uncover opportunity is to ask emotionally specific questions. Not like, what do you do? Try, what are you working on right now that's most exciting and most frustrating? That's an open invitation for honesty. Or you could ask something like, if you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing in your business, what would that be? They'll tell you the exact pain point that your service solves. But here's the trick. Don't ever jump in with, I can help with that. Just stay curious, keep the focus on them, because when the show's over, they'll say, hey, that thing I mentioned, can we talk more about that? That's the moment that you've earned. If you show up trying to impress, your guest goes into like a guarded mode. But if you show up genuinely curious, then their shoulders kind of drop down and they relax. They feel safe. That's the energy of leadership. Calm, present, and real. Don't overcomplicate. Don't perform. Just guide. Because your confidence gives them permission to be authentic. And that authenticity is what turns into opportunities later. Here's where most hosts blow it, right? They wrap up the show, thank the guest, and then move on. But the magic happens right after the show ends, when the cameras stop. That's when people are warm, grateful, they're relaxed and thinking about what just happened. So when the cameras stop, just take a beat. Say something like, that was awesome. You mentioned you're struggling with X, Y, and Z. If you ever want to brainstorm ideas around that, I would love to help. Simple, genuine, no pitch deck. I see it all the time when I'm filming podcasts. The camera stops and the real conversation begins of, wow, let's work together. So the next time you're preparing for your podcast or your show, whatever, I want you to draw out that conversation arc, and plan one question for each stage, something that gets the guest to open up. Then after the recording, send them a thank you note that references something personal that they shared. I'm telling you, you're going to be amazed at how many of those guests circle back later to work with you. You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to compile all the footage that goes on in the video podcasts that I do after the podcast has ended, but the cameras are still rolling, and that's where those conversations happen. And I can show you exactly what I mean when just that interview turns into clients and referrals and all that good stuff. So now your interviews are doing more than just entertaining. They're building real relationships and creating opportunities and positioning you as the go-to expert in your space. But here's the next challenge. You've got one great interview, and now you need to turn it into content that works for you all week long. Because one recording should equal 10 pieces of content at the minimum. So you'll want to watch this next video where I show you exactly how to do that, how to turn one talk show recording into reels, shorts, carousels, emails, all from a single session. And as always, thanks for watching.